When you think about the word wealth,
Yeah.
what comes to mind? I mean, is it just like dollar signs?
Yeah.
Or could it be something like more, like having the time to do what you want? Well, we're going deep today on the 5 types of wealth by Sahil Bloom, and we're going to explore that very question,
Yeah, it's so interesting, that idea that wealth can be broader than just, money.
for sure. And Sahil Bloom is kind of an interesting person to take us on this journey. He actually started in finance, Wall Street, the whole deal. But then he shifted into writing and exploring these bigger ideas about what a good life looks like.
Yeah, his background really gives him a unique perspective. It's not like he's coming from some idealistic, out of touch place. He's been there. He's seen what focusing just on money can do.
Definitely. And, one of the things that stuck with me was how he interviewed all these elderly people. It was over 100 people and over 1,000 years of like life experience.
It's like he wanted to get to the heart of it. What do people regret? What matters most at the end of life?
And it turns out their biggest regrets weren't about not having a bigger bank account. It was about time lost, relationships that could have been better, and neglecting their own well-being. Kind of makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. And it really sets the stage for what Bloom is saying. True wealth goes way beyond just your finances. He talks about 5 types of wealth that are all connected, and that's what we're going to dive into today.
All right, let's get started. So the first one is time wealth. And Bloom asks this big question, and it's really interesting. What would you regret not doing if today was your last? Pretty heavy, right?
It is. It's a big one because it makes you think, what's really important? Time is the one thing we can't make more of, right?
Especially these days. March 2025, folks, everyone's got their phones and their digital distractions everywhere. It's like a fight for our attention every second.
You're totally right. It's easy to get pulled in so many different directions. But Bloom says that's why the first part of time wealth is awareness.
So being aware that we're always choosing how to spend our time, even if we don't realize it.
Yeah, exactly. Like realizing your time is valuable and choosing to spend it on things that matter to you, things that match your priorities. Then there's the second part, intentionality. It's about planning your day, planning your life in a way that, helps you reach your goals and feel good.
So not just reacting to emails or whatever pops up on social media. It's about choosing what to say yes to and, more importantly, what to say no to.
Right. And it's funny, Bloom actually tells this story about turning down a huge speaking gig, tons of money and exposure, just to see his son's first steps. He knew that those moments with his family were irreplaceable.
That's a great example of like really living time wealth. It's about making choices that reflect what you truly value, even if it means saying no to something that seems tempting.
For sure. And that leads us to the third part of time wealth, boundaries. It's about protecting your time and energy even when there's so much going on. It's like building a fence around like your most valuable resource.
I like that. Especially nowadays with all the pressure to hustle and do more, setting boundaries can seem almost rebellious.
It can, but it's so important to prevent burnout. Bloom talks about setting anti-goals.
Anti-goals, that's a new one. What are those?
They're like the things you really want to avoid. For example, if your anti-goal is burnout, you might set a boundary on how many hours you work or how many projects you take on at once.
I see. So it's about being proactive and making choices that protect your time and energy instead of just reacting to whatever comes your way.
Exactly. And what's cool about Bloom's book is that he doesn't just tell us about these concepts. He has an action guide with actual steps to use these ideas in our daily lives.
The action guide is so useful. He suggests using the Eisenhower matrix for prioritizing, blocking out time on our calendar, and even like practicing saying no in the mirror.
Yeah, super practical stuff. I've been trying time blocking myself, and it's wild how much more focused I feel when I have a clear plan.
Right. It's like you're in control of your time instead of it controlling you. All right. So that's time wealth. Such a powerful idea. What's up next on Bloom's list?
So after time wealth, we move on to something that builds on that idea, social wealth. Bloom asks this really interesting question: who would you call in a crisis? And who would call you?
Wow, that one really hits home. It makes you think about like how strong your relationships really are.
Definitely. It's about those connections with other people. That's where so much of our happiness comes from. They give us support, love, a sense of belonging, all these things that contribute to our well-being.
And, it feels like that's even more important now. In 2025, there's so much loneliness and isolation. We're more connected online than ever, but real human connection is harder to find.
That's a good point. And that's why Bloom says we need to work on building social wealth. He says there are three main parts to it. The first one is presence.
Present. So like actually being there for people, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally present as well.
Right, totally. Putting down the phone, really listening to someone, making eye contact. It's about being in the moment, not thinking about your to-do list or what's happening online.
I think that's hard for a lot of us. It's easy to get distracted and miss those little moments that connect us to others.
It really is. But Bloom says those little moments are where it's at. Sharing meals, talking with a friend, that's how you build real social wealth.
That makes sense. It's not about grand gestures. It's about those everyday moments that build strong relationships. So presence is the first part. What's next?
The next one is reciprocity.
Like give and take? You help me, I help you.
Yeah, it's about building relationships that are good for both people. It's not just about what you get, it's about what you contribute.
It's so easy to forget that. Everyone's so focused on themselves these days.
Hmm.
But the truth is, true happiness comes from connecting with others and giving back.
I agree. And Bloom points out that reciprocity doesn't have to be perfectly balanced all the time. We all go through times when we need more support than we can give, and that's okay.
It's about knowing you have people you can depend on, and they can depend on you. That's a strong foundation.
And finally, the third part of social wealth is diversity. It's about having friends from all walks of life.
So not just sticking with people who are just like us,
Yeah.
but reaching out to people from different backgrounds, cultures, ages, maybe even different political viewpoints.
Yeah, exactly. When we're around people who are different, it makes us think differently. It opens our minds and makes our lives richer.
It's about appreciating all the different kinds of people in the world.
Right. And Bloom says this is super important for being able to adapt and be resilient, especially in a world that's changing so quickly.
It's like having a diverse stock portfolio. If one area tanks, it doesn't wipe you out completely. You have other things to rely on.
Such a good analogy. Bloom actually tells a story about an 85-year-old woman who wished she hadn't worked so much. She missed out on her daughter's recitals and those special family moments.
Oh, that's so sad. It reminds you that we often don't realize how important our relationships are until it's too late.
It really does. So it's not something to take for granted. Bloom's point is that we have to put effort into building social wealth.
So listeners, here's a challenge for you. What's one small thing you can do today to make your relationship stronger? It could be sending a text to a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, calling your parents, or putting your phone away at dinner and really talking to the people you're with.
Even the little things add up.
Absolutely.
Ah.
So we've talked about time wealth and social wealth. What's next on Bloom's list?
Next up is all about our inner world, mental wealth. And Bloom's big question for this one is what lights you up and keeps you growing?
That's a great question. It makes you look forward. It's not about dwelling on the past or being stuck. It's about finding what gives you joy, what makes you feel alive, and keep learning and growing.
Yeah, it's not just about knowing a lot of facts. Mental wealth is about having a purpose, feeling calm and focused, and being open to always learning new things.
So it's like building a strong foundation inside yourself. It helps you face challenges and make the most of opportunities with clarity, strength, and purpose.
Exactly. And that's even more important now in 2025. Everything's changing so fast, technology, the economy, politics. It can feel overwhelming.
Absolutely. It's like the world's on fast forward.
Bloom says that having strong mental wealth can help us not only deal with these changes, but actually thrive because of them.
So it's about giving ourselves the tools to handle the craziness of modern life. So how do we actually build mental wealth? What are the key parts?
Well, the first one is purpose. It's all about finding what makes your life meaningful. What are your values? What are you passionate about? What's your unique contribution to the world?
That's a big question. Finding your purpose can feel almost impossible, especially with all the pressure from society telling us what we should be doing.
It can be tough. But Bloom thinks the answers are already inside us, waiting to be discovered. He suggests journaling, meditation, spending time in nature, anything that helps you connect with your inner self and discover what truly excites you.
So it's about tuning out the noise and listening to your own inner voice, right?
Exactly. And once you have a sense of purpose, you can start making choices that are aligned with it, that leads to feeling more fulfilled and satisfied.
It's like your life has a direction, a reason. You're not just floating along. So purpose is the first part. What's the second?
The second part of mental wealth is mindfulness. It's about being present, aware of what's happening right now, learning to quiet your mind and focus on the present moment.
Mindfulness is such a buzzword these days, but honestly, I struggle with it. My mind is always racing. especially with all the demands of life.
I get it. But Bloom says it's not about having a completely empty mind. It's about noticing your thoughts and feelings without judging them, and then gently bringing your attention back to what's happening now.
So you train your mind like a muscle to become more present and aware.
Right. He even uses this cool analogy in the book. He compares our minds to a snow globe that's always being shaken up. Mindfulness is like setting the snow globe down, letting everything settle so you can see clearly.
I love that visual. So we've got purpose and mindfulness. What's the third part of mental wealth?
The third part is growth. It's about always wanting to learn and develop, always being open to new things.
So staying curious, trying new things, pushing yourself to grow throughout your life.
Exactly. And it's not just about like formal education or learning specific skills. It's about being open to new ideas, different perspectives, and constantly trying to understand the world better.
Which is really important in today's world where everything is changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
We have to be lifelong learners just to keep up.
Absolutely. And Bloom says we should see challenges as opportunities to grow, not as setbacks. He talks about having a growth mindset, believing that you can get better at things through effort and learning.
So instead of saying, I'm not good at this, you say, I'm not good at this yet. It's a different way of looking at things. It's about embracing the process of learning and growing.
Exactly. And it's interesting. Bloom wasn't sure if anyone would actually read his writing at first. He started this newsletter called The Curiosity Chronicle, but he doubted its impact.
Didn't he get a message from a reader that changed his mind?
He did. A reader reached out and told him how much his words helped them through a tough time. That's when Bloom realized that even if his writing only reached a few people, it could still make a real difference.
It just shows you sometimes we don't realize the impact we have on others. And it's a great example of how mental wealth can actually help boost our social wealth and even our time wealth.
You're right. When we're clear on our purpose and we're growing, we make different choices about how we use our time and connect with people.
It's like these three parts of mental wealth, purpose, mindfulness, and growth, create a foundation for living a more intentional and fulfilling life.
Exactly. And remember Bloom's action guide? Well, he has some great tips for actually using these ideas. He suggests things like journaling to figure out your values and passions, taking 5 minutes a day for meditation, and using spaced repetition to learn and remember things better.
Spaced repetition is so cool. It's about reviewing information at specific times to help your brain remember it better. I've been using it to learn a new language, and it actually works.
It's a really effective technique. All right, so we've covered 3 types of wealth: time, social, and mental. Ready to move on to the next one?
Definitely. Tell me more.
Bloom's 4th type of wealth is physical wealth. His question for this one is, how will you feel in your body 10 years from now?
That's a good one. It makes you think about the long term. Not just how you look today, but making choices that will keep you healthy and strong for years to come.
Right. It's not about chasing fads or trying to look a certain way. Bloom defines physical wealth as creating healthy habits that will make you feel good long term.
So it's not about quick fixes or fitting into a certain size. It's about taking care of your body so you can live your best life.
Exactly. And he breaks it down into 3 main things: movement, nutrition, and recovery.
Okay, let's break those down. Let's start with movement. What does Bloom say about that?
He emphasizes the importance of moving your body every day. It doesn't have to be intense exercise. It could be as simple as going for a walk, dancing, taking the stairs, or just standing up and stretching every hour if you work at a desk.
Right, so finding ways to move more throughout the day instead of thinking of it as this separate thing you have to schedule in.
Yes. It's about making movement a natural part of your life. Then there's nutrition, obviously.
Eating well, giving your body the fuel it needs.
Bloom recommends focusing on whole, unprocessed foods and making sure you get enough protein.
I know everyone has different dietary needs, and we're not giving medical advice here, but I remember Bloom suggesting aiming for 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight as a general guideline.
Right, he does mention that. But it's always best to talk to your doctor to figure out what's best for you personally.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that eating healthy isn't about deprivation. It's about nourishing your body so you can feel your best.
Okay, so we've covered movement and nutrition. What's the 3rd pillar of physical wealth?
The third one is recovery, and it's all about giving your body the rest it needs.
So important. It's so easy to neglect rest, especially in today's world. We're always busy, always pushing ourselves to the limit. It's like a badge of honor.
But Bloom says rest is just as important as activity when it comes to physical wealth. He talks about getting enough sleep, managing stress, and doing things like meditation, or spending time in nature to help your body and mind recharge.
And I think that's even more important now. In 2025, with everyone constantly connected to technology, it's hard to disconnect and give our bodies and minds a break. I agree. Bloom even shares a story about training for a marathon while working and raising a family. He would wake up early to run, eat healthy meals, and make sure to prioritize sleep so he could recover properly.
That's a great example of how you can be fit and healthy without letting it take over your whole life.
Yeah, it's about finding a sustainable approach that works for you, not some crazy restrictive diet or workout plan that you can't stick with.
So for everyone listening, what's one small thing you can do today to take care of your physical wealth? Maybe it's taking a 15-minute walk, drinking more water, or setting a regular sleep schedule.
You don't have to make huge changes all at once. Small, consistent steps can make a big difference over time.
Absolutely. Okay, we've talked about time, social, mental, and physical wealth. What's the fifth and final type of wealth on Bloom's list?
The fifth one is financial wealth, the one we probably think about most when we hear the word wealth. But even here, Bloom offers a different perspective. He starts by asking, what does enough mean to you?
That's a deep question. It makes you think about your relationship with money. What does it really mean to be financially well?
It's a really important question, especially in 2025 with all the worries about the economy, like inflation, job security, and all that. It's easy to get caught up in feeling like you need more, more, more just to be okay.
Yeah, it's like we're on this treadmill, always running towards more, but never really getting anywhere.
Bloom calls this the arrival fallacy. We think hitting a certain financial goal will make us happy, but then we just set our sights on the next big thing.
It's a never-ending cycle. But Bloom says real financial wealth isn't about just piling up more and more money. It's about having enough to give you freedom and options in your life. It's about having your financial goals aligned with your values.
And he breaks it down into three parts: security, independence, and, well, enough.
Okay, tell me more about those. Let's start with security. What does he mean by that?
Security is about having a strong financial base that gives you stability and peace of mind. It's about knowing your basic needs are met, having an emergency fund in case something unexpected happens, and being responsible with debt.
So it's about having a safety net, just in case,
Exactly. It's about that feeling of knowing that even if things get tough, you'll be okay.
which feels really important these days with the way the world is, all the uncertainty. Okay, so security makes sense. What's the second part of financial wealth?
The second one is independence. It's about having financial freedom and flexibility. It's about not relying on just one source of income and instead building multiple streams of revenue.
That sounds pretty awesome, actually.
It is. It could be starting a side hustle, investing in things that pay dividends, or exploring ways to earn passive income.
I think that's really important for people to hear, especially in 2025. Having different income sources can give you security and options in a world that's changing so fast.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the money coming in. It's also about understanding where your money goes, keeping track of your expenses and making conscious choices.
It's about being in control of your money instead of letting it control you. All right, so security and independence. What about the third part of financial wealth?
The third part is, I think, the most interesting. It's about enough.
Enough.
Yeah.
So, like, figuring out what that means for you,
Right.
right? Deciding how much money you actually need to feel content and secure without always wanting more.
Exactly. It's tough to wrap your head around, especially with, society always telling us to buy more, get a bigger house, keep up with everyone else. Have you ever felt that pressure?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Especially with social media. It's like everyone is always showing off their new stuff, going on fancy vacations. It's so easy to compare yourself and feel like you're not doing enough.
It's a trap we all fall into. Bloom says we need to step back and ask ourselves, what really matters? What brings me joy? And how can my financial goals match those things?
So you define success for yourself instead of letting the world tell you what it should look like.
Right. He tells a story about a friend who bought a yacht, but then he immediately felt jealous of someone with an even bigger yacht. It just proves that no matter how much you have, you can always want more.
It never ends.
It doesn't. Bloom says the key is to define what enough looks like for you, and then focus on building a life that's rich in things that actually matter. Relationships, experiences, purpose, well-being.
So it's about shifting your focus from stuff to experiences and connection.
Exactly. And that's a really important message, especially these days when everyone is trying to sell us something.
So everyone listening, I want you to really think about this. What does enough mean to you? What truly matters when it comes to your finances? What would it look like to create a life that's full of joy, regardless of how much money you have.
It's something worth thinking about. When you define what enough is for you can stop chasing more and focus on building a life that truly reflects your values.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered all 5 types of wealth that Bloom talks about in his book: time, social, mental, physical, and financial. And I'm already starting to see how they all connect.
You're right, they all influence and support each other. And that's something we'll talk more about in our next segment. We'll explore how these different types of wealth are interconnected and how neglecting one can affect the others. Stay tuned. Okay, so we've explored each of Bloom's 5 types of wealth, one by one. But what I find so interesting is how he really stresses that they're all connected.
Yeah, it's not like they're totally separate things. They all play off each other in some way.
Exactly. He uses this really helpful analogy. He compares it to a table with 5 legs. Each leg represents one of the types of wealth: time, social, mental, physical, and financial.
Okay, I can see that. So what happens if one leg is shorter than the others? Like, what if you're neglecting one type of wealth?
The table gets wobbly, right? It's unstable. Maybe you can balance it for a bit, but eventually the whole thing is going to tip over.
So if you're not paying attention to one area of your life, it can have a domino effect on everything else.
Exactly. For example, let's say you're always sacrificing your sleep and health. That's physical wealth, right? To get ahead at work, to chase more money, financial wealth. Well, that's probably going to start affecting your relationships, social wealth. And it might even make you feel stressed and less clear-headed mental wealth. You might get that promotion, but at what cost?
That makes a lot of sense. It's like you can't just focus on one part of your life without it affecting everything else.
Right. And it works the other way, too. Bloom talks about someone who has really strong relationships, a good support network. That's social wealth. Having that foundation can make you more resilient, improve your mental well-being, mental wealth, and that can then help you make better choices in other areas like your career, financial wealth, or how you spend your free time, time wealth.
So it creates this upward spiral. Investing in one area can have these ripple effects that make other areas stronger.
Exactly. It's like a more well-rounded approach to life, realizing that all these different parts of our well-being are interconnected.
I'm also curious, how does this apply to people at different stages in their lives? Someone in their 20s might be focused on their career and financial stability, while someone in their 60s might be more focused on relationships and experiences.
That's a great question. Bloom acknowledges that, yeah, the way we prioritize and cultivate these types of wealth can change as we go through life. What it means to have a wealthy life will look different for everyone.
It's about figuring out what success means for you, not chasing some external definition, and realizing that it's a journey, not a destination. We're always growing and changing.
Exactly. It's about finding balance, making adjustments as you go along.
Okay, so we've talked about how these types of wealth are interconnected and how they can evolve throughout our lives. But how do we actually put this all into practice? It's one thing to understand the ideas, but how do we actually use them?
Well, remember that action guide we mentioned? Bloom has all these strategies and exercises for each type of wealth. He doesn't just leave you with these abstract ideas, he actually gives you tools to work with.
Right. We talked about a few of them earlier, like the Eisenhower matrix for time wealth and spaced repetition for mental wealth. Are there any others that you found really useful?
For social wealth, he suggests actually scheduling time to connect with loved ones, even if it's just a quick video chat. It's easy to let those connections fade, with life getting in the way, especially now with so much going on all the time.
It's like you have to be intentional about maintaining your relationships, just like you have to be intentional with your time and money.
Exactly. And for physical wealth, he talks about finding small ways to move more throughout your day. Even if it's just taking the stairs or going for a walk at lunch, it doesn't have to be a crazy workout every day.
That feels much more doable. It's not about trying to achieve some perfect ideal. It's about making small changes you can actually stick with.
Exactly. And for financial wealth, he emphasizes having a budget that reflects your values. So you're spending money on things that actually matter to you, being aware of where your money goes instead of just letting it disappear.
I've been trying to do that myself. It's amazing how much money I was wasting on things I didn't even really care about.
Yeah.
Just tracking my spending and having a budget has made a big difference.
It's about being mindful with your money, just like we talked about being mindful with your time and energy. It's all connected.
Okay, so Bloom gives us these really practical tools and tips, but I think there's also a deeper message here. It's not just about following a set of rules. It's about cultivating a different mindset, a different way of approaching life.
Oh, I completely agree. It's about shifting your focus from like external achievements and validation to focusing on your own well-being and fulfillment. Defining what success means for you, not what society tells you it should be.
And recognizing that true wealth isn't about having a lot of stuff. It's about living a life that's full of meaning, connection, and purpose.
Yes, it's about living in alignment with your values, creating a life that feels authentic.
So to everyone listening, as you're thinking about these 5 types of wealth, ask yourself, what areas am I neglecting? What am I putting too much emphasis on? Which legs of my table need some extra support?
And remember, it's a constant process. There's no finish line. It's okay to make adjustments as you go.
Be kind to yourself, be patient, and just keep moving towards a life that feels richer and more fulfilling.
And if you're ever feeling lost or overwhelmed, remember Bloom's simple but powerful message. When in doubt, love. The world can always use more love.
That's beautiful.
Hmm.
It reminds us that in the end, it's about connection, compassion, kindness. Those are the things that make our lives richer and make the world a better place.
It's a message we all need to hear, especially right now.
Definitely. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'd like to leave you with a question. What's one small step you could take today to invest in one of these areas of wealth? Maybe it's calling a friend, taking a walk in nature, or just taking a few deep breaths and focusing on the present moment.
Every little bit counts. It's about moving towards a life that feels good and realizing that true wealth is within your reach.
We spent a lot of time talking about Sahil Bloom's 5 types of wealth, but I'm curious, what really resonated with you from his book? What stuck with you?
You know, what's powerful about Bloom's approach is how he makes us rethink what success really means. It's not just about, money or climbing the career ladder. It's about having a life full of experiences, meaningful relationships, and a sense of well-being.
I totally agree. It's a much bigger and more interesting way to think about what it means to have a fulfilling life. It's like realizing that wealth isn't just about your bank account.
And I like that Bloom doesn't completely dismiss financial wealth. It's not about saying money doesn't matter at all. It's about having a good relationship with money, seeing it as a tool to support other areas of your life.
Right. It's about having financial goals that align with your values and using money to create more freedom and choices, not making it the only thing that defines you.
And his idea of enough is so important. In a world where everyone tells you to buy more, have more, be more, it's almost revolutionary to decide what truly makes you content and to resist always wanting more.
It's about breaking free from that need to constantly consume and realizing that real happiness comes from experiences, relationships, growth, and giving back.
And that message is really important right now. In 2025, we're facing so many challenges in the world. Climate change, the economy, political divisions. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and anxious.
It really is. There's a lot going on.
But Bloom's framework gives us a sense of hope, a sense of control. It reminds us that even with all these challenges, we still have the power to shape our own lives. We can make choices every day that support our well-being and create a more meaningful life.
It's about focusing on what we can control, our attitude, our habits, our relationships, and building a life that's strong and full of things that truly matter.
Exactly. And remembering that we don't have to do it alone. We can rely on each other, ask for help from mentors, and connect with others who are on a similar path.
There's something really powerful about community and support, especially when things are tough.
Absolutely. And Bloom reminds us that it's never too late to start making changes. Even small changes over time can make a huge difference.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the 5 types of wealth, I will leave you with this question. If you could increase your wealth in just one of these areas today, which one would it be and why?
It's a good question to think about. What are your priorities? What brings you the most joy and fulfillment?
Maybe it's spending more time with loved ones, working on a passion project, taking care of your health, or simply taking a few moments each day to appreciate what you have and find peace.
Whatever it is for you, I encourage you to take a step today, even a small one. It's about moving towards a life that feels rich and fulfilling and realizing that true wealth is something you can create.
Bloom leaves us with these beautiful words. When in doubt, love. The world can always use more love. So go out there and share some love, everyone. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep creating a life that's rich in every way.